Hello class, welcome to our degrees of light and shadow exercise. For this exercise we are going to need our mixed media pad that we have the value scales on. We're going to need our sharpener, we're going to need our pencils, and an eraser. It can be your kneaded eraser or your white plastic eraser. The first step to do is going to be laying out these three windows across the top of the page. So to do that, you'll need to make two measurements for the midpoint, which this is 14 inches. So we know that then that needs to be 7 inches here, 7 inches on the left side, and then we can draw the line across, right? Remember, measure twice, cut once. Same thing for making the three windows. This is 17 inches wide. So if we divide 17 inches by 3, it's approximately 5.5 inches. Technically, it's 5.66 repeating, I think. But just go ahead and make two measurements from the perforation to 5.5, 5.5 from the top as well, and then continue along 5.5, 5.5, and then you'll have two sets of marks, and then you can connect those marks right here. And then you'll have approximately 3 equal size windows. The one on the right ends up being just a tiny bit large, but that's fine. So I like to also have a little scrap piece of paper that I can set down and protect my value swatches with. So go ahead and find a little piece of sketchbook paper or something to just cover your value scales so you don't smudge them around. Okay, so I'm going to start with the cone here. And in these three windows, we're going to draw all three of the forms. We're going to draw the cone. We're going to draw the cylinder and the sphere. We're going to use those using our pencils for this one. In one of these windows, you're going to draw using hatching. And then in the other two, you're going to use shading. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the cone and show you how to begin this exercise. Now you can't see it, but I have the cone image up in front of me. So I can redraw from the photograph that is in the page, our Canvas page. So I'm going to start by just making a very light contour line drawing of my cone to map out its forms. Now, if you are new to drawing, you might want to do some strategies. So you can probably barely see that. So I'm going to draw it a little bit darker. One thing we know about the cone is that a cone is symmetrical down the central axis. So I can draw a vertical line that will help me map out the height of my cone, as well as help keep my symmetry correct. So if I wanted, I could put a little top and bottom mark there, and that'll tell me the total height of the cone. And that's going to help me get my proportions correct. From there, I can then do my the sides of my cone, and I can bring those down symmetrically. If I want to be very accurate, I could place my finger on the mark with my pencil. So I put the tip of my pencil here at the center line with my thumb where the side angle comes down, and then I could make that mark, get that exact location, put a mark there, and then I can use that line to help guide me to the top of where my cone would be located, the top of the cone. So then that way I maintain very good symmetry here. Now I've just got to finish off the cone here by drawing the round part at the end, the bottom. And the round part is probably going to curve more than you think. Lots of beginner drawers tend to make this line flat or not curved enough. So if you look closely at the image, notice at the very end, it really wraps back quite a lot, almost going completely vertical at the very edge. That's what we're seeing is where the cone wraps around to the backside. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and erase some of my guidelines so that they aren't there anymore. Clean that up. Okay, so now I have my basic contour line drawing. Now, I want to identify where the core shadow is located. The core shadow is very rarely on the very edge. And if we look at this image, the core shadow kind of angles down right about like here. So I'm just going to give myself a guideline along my drawing here so I can make sure I place that there correctly. A little bit more of these guidelines out of the way here. So this is going to help me identify where my darkest part of the shadow is. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just use hatching on this one right away. So I'm going to go ahead and just start adding some hatches here. And noticing I'm kind of angling them so they follow the curvature of the cone here. That's called directional hatching. And if you do that, that'll just help it look a little bit more accurate. And I'm just kind of getting some basic hatches down here. I can curve these a little bit more as I go down. I'm just trying to get that initial visualization of where my hatches are going to go. And now I can come in and start to darken them as well as lighten them in the opposite direction. Now I'm going to go ahead and really get that core shadow really nice and dark here. Going at a slightly different angle just to add a mild crosshatch here. Now I need to start lightening it to the left side of the cone here, so I'm going to space out my hatches a little bit more so it starts to create the illusion of the lighter values. Still trying to curve them a little bit to go along the cross contour of the cone. I can add a little bit more here into the highlights here. Now, I want to make these, I feel like I want to get my core shadow a little bit darker. So I'm going to come in here with a little bit more cross hatching to really make that core shadow dark. And notice it's a little bit lighter on the edge here, so I want to account for that as I start to finish this hatching process. And I feel like that's a little too harsh here, so I want to try and smooth that out a little bit. By just adding some additional hatches to make my blend a little bit, have more transition. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now I also still have the cast shadow here that I want to draw, so I can give myself a little contour line, guideline here of the cast shadow. Got a little bit down here at the bottom as well. So I can go ahead and really press hard in here and get my hatches very dense. And I'm going to go ahead and add a bunch of cross hatching in this as well. Just slowly moving my hatches to more perpendicular lines across each of those hatches just to make it darker. It does fade a little bit. It does have a softer edge, so I'm going to allow a few of those to extend beyond the hatch just to kind of soften that edge a little bit. It does kind of wrap around here a little bit more to get pretty dark at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and just add some small hatches there at the bottom to start to, represent where the bottom of the cone meets the ground. And then one other thing you can do is the background. The background is a great way to push your highlight forward, because notice we still just have the outline here. What we want to do is then, there's a little bit of a line here on the image, so I'll go ahead and sort of draw that. And then I can go ahead and then really hatch the background really nice, really well, and dark, because it's a dark shadow back there. And that's going to help what I call melt this outline into a value edge. And I can continue that around the whole side. I can bring it out a little bit more just to sort of fade it out and give it a little style. And then it's not quite, the hatching is not quite as dark on, as dark as the edge of the cone here. So I'm just going to give a little bit of hatching over here as well, just to frame the object in a little bit more. And then I technically still have some value in the ground too, that by doing that I can also just help give a little bit of value to the floor or the ground, the piece of fabric that this cone is sitting on. If I want to make any of this darker, I could add some cross hatches into this as well, and really push that even further back with more darks. Hey, that's not too bad. Okay, so that's the cone.